Chapter 1 of The Will and the Way Stories. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Roger Melin. The Will and the Way Stories by Jessie Benton Frémont. Chapter 1 The Deckhand. The boys of Mr. Fountain's school were delighted when he told them he should take them that evening to a lecture in the town. Not that they cared a fig for the lecture, but it was a chance to get out, and in place of the quiet study room there would be the jolly walk by moonlight down the frozen hillside, with slides and snowballing instead of books. Then the bright lecture room gay with all the young people of the town smiling and nodding to them in the telegraph signal way young people knew long before real telegraphs were invented. The lecture itself might have been on astronomy or prehistoric man, and it would have been exactly as welcomed by them. They had no idea of using their ears, only their eyes. But they were surprised into deep interest. A wiry but strong man about 50 years of age began at once to tell them he was glad to meet so many young people, and as they had marched in, their uniformed corps, their bright, healthy looks and elastic-trained steps made him see the good preparation they were having for a disciplined and useful future. That he felt it his opportunity to give them in their young and impressionable phase the warning that experience had qualified him to give, and the example of perseverance and will required to regain an upright life, which his experience also qualified him to prove was possible. Possible, with a steadfast will and God's help. And he told them his story, the story of a pleasant New England home, where he too had been a happy schoolboy, rejoicing in winter sleighings and skatings, and the cheery home life around the big fire, the happy summers of farm work and study, of his parents' love and pride in him. "I was a quick and bright boy, and they thought I would come to a high name, for I loved to study as well as to play." And so his young life went on, steadily upwards, through the home school, then until he was nearly through college. He had grown away from the simpler and loving home influences, and had been made to think many things only manly and like a good fellow, which in the home he had been taught were wrong. But with the wish to be a good fellow, and the unwillingness to lose popularity by refusing to drink, he made the break that let in ruin. Friendly drinks were the beginning of the end. He told of his broken career, the dismissal from college, the distress of his home, his debts, his father's sorrow and anger, his father's death, his own remorse and flight from home as far as he could get to the South, and there of his quick falling lower and lower, from his brief efforts to reform into longer periods of drinking, until he found himself so degraded by it that he was finally forced by hunger to take the lowest employment a white man could then have. This was a good many years before our late war, the place of deckhand on a Mississippi steamboat. By this he was put entirely among a low and dangerous class of negro slaves. Men whose violent natures or whose passion for drink made them unsafe for usual plantation work. Criminal and dangerous negroes were not put in jail then. They would have been a loss to the master of the profits of their labor. So he became one in a gang of the worst characters and, what was then held as worse yet, worked with black men. Under the rough and even cruel control that could be enforced on board the boat these men were kept in check, to break out at times fiercely among themselves, or on getting ashore, I do not know how they manage now, but in the old day fuel for steam was supplied at frequent landings, where long lines of cordwood were kept ready for the boat.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?